Get ready to embark on a fascinating journey that unites faith and neuroscience. We'll delve into the biology of miracles, exploring whether the human brain can manifest spiritual phenomena. Can science shed light on the supernatural without diminishing God's divine power? Let's maintain the mystery of how science and miracles coexist in an extraordinary way. The biblical narrative of creation serves as the fundamental starting point for understanding how science can be viewed not as a rival to faith, but as a glorious extension of divine power and intelligence. In Genesis, God's word commands existence, establishing the cosmos with a precision and order that modern science continues to unveil. The natural laws governing our universe, from the complex subatomic interactions of quantum physics to the grand forces shaping entire galaxies, are, from this perspective, the unmistakable signature of a creator who infused order, structure, and intelligibility into every fiber of reality. When the Bible describes the formation of man in God's image and likeness, it suggests not only extraordinary biological complexity but also a dimension that transcends the purely material, pointing to the unique capacity of the human brain to connect with the spiritual. Neuroscience, in its exploration of mystical and transcendent experiences, is beginning to glimpse this capacity. The creation of human beings, with their intricate biology and, in particular, the development of the human brain, can be seen as the pinnacle of divine ingenuity. This remarkable organ, with billions of neurons and trillions of connections, is not just a center for logical processing. It's also the seat of our emotions, consciousness, intuition, and, for many, the very ability to experience the divine. Neuroscience has advanced in understanding how certain brain areas are activated during deep meditation, prayer, or experiences of religious ecstasy, leading to questions about the biological basis of spiritual phenomena. However, this scientific pursuit doesn't diminish God's power. Rather, it reveals the depth of His creation, which endowed humanity with an inherent capacity to seek and, perhaps, manifest the sacred. The origin of natural laws, including the laws of biology governing brain development and function, is attributed to God, who established them with perfection. It's crucial to acknowledge that the Bible, being a book of divine revelation and not a neuroscience treatise, doesn't use scientific terms in their modern sense. Nevertheless, it describes human creation as a singular act, where divine breath infuses life into a body formed from the dust of the earth. This union of the material and the spiritual testifies to the intentional complexity of creation. Science, by unraveling the secrets of the brain and human biology, is, in fact, discovering the complex, beautiful, and ingenious rules of the game that God established for the functioning of the cosmos and for conscious life itself. This perspective not only deeply harmonizes faith and science but elevates science to a powerful and essential tool for appreciating the unattainable mind of the Creator, revealing His glory in every cell, every synapse, and every experience that makes up the vast tapestry of human existence, including our inclination and capacity for the spiritual. Many of the vivid and impressive miracles described in the Holy Scriptures seem to openly defy the natural laws we know, particularly human biology. How, then, can we, as human beings in a scientific age, reconcile these extraordinary events with our rational and scientific understanding of the body and the human brain? Consider the instant healings of the blind, paralyzed, and lepers, the raising of the dead, or Jesus' ability to calm storms with a word. Events that seem to operate outside the limits of known physiology and neuroscience. Can science, with its analytical tools and empirical methods, truly offer plausible explanations that, in some way, engage with these extraordinary events without, however, diminishing or nullifying the powerful and central divine action that renders them miraculous in faith? In the case of miraculous healings, for example, modern science might speculate about the activation of the body's self-regeneration mechanisms at levels we don't yet understand, or about the placebo effect taken to its most powerful extreme, where the individual's faith, or the faith of the miracle worker, somehow triggers an extraordinary biological response in the brain. We could theorize about the brain's ability to modulate pain, inflammation, and even tissue regeneration through complex neurochemical and hormonal pathways. Neuroscience has investigated the mind-body connection and how emotions and beliefs can impact physical health. Thus, a miraculous healing could be seen as an extreme manifestation of the brain's capacity to influence the body, perhaps under divine activation. However, for congenital blindness or atrophied limbs, these scientific explanations are insufficient for the instantaneousness and completeness of biblical healings. The raising of the dead, such as Lazarus, represents an even greater challenge for biology. Death, scientifically, is the irreversible cessation of brain and bodily functions. In current medicine, there is no known mechanism that can reverse cellular decomposition and restore life after the cessation of brain and heart activity for a prolonged period. Any attempt at scientific explanation here would be pure speculation, perhaps involving the reactivation of cellular processes at a level that transcends our current understanding or intervention at a quantum level of matter. Nevertheless, even with all these attempts at rationalization or searches for underlying biological substrata, God's action is and remains central and undeniable in all these biblical miracles. A scientific explanation, if it can even be fully called that, merely serves to illustrate how God can operate in ways that interact with, or even transcend, the biological laws he himself established. Miracles are not mere biological coincidences. They are extraordinary events that, while they may have a natural substratum, like the body's innate healing capacity, are divinely orchestrated in their precise timing, profound purpose, and transformative impact on people's faith and lives. Science can strive to describe how these phenomena occurred in terms of their physical and biological manifestations, but the who initiated them, the why they happened, and the power behind them belong exclusively to the realm of faith, and these miracles continue to point to a power that transcends our usual understanding of biology and its laws. The natural laws that govern our universe, including the complex laws of biology and neuroscience that govern the functioning of the human brain, are often perceived as immutable, independent, and self-existing principles that operate autonomously. However, from a profound and inspiring theological perspective, they reveal themselves as a direct and majestic reflection of God's divine power, manifesting his intrinsic order, his impeccable logic, and his unfathomable intelligence that permeates all creation. The very existence of the human brain, with its capacity for cognition, emotion, consciousness, and, notably, the ability to experience spiritual phenomena, is a primary example of this divinely established order. It is not an accidentally arising organ. Its precise structure and its capacity to process complex information, generate abstract thoughts, and experience spirituality are crucial for the human experience. The biology of the human brain, with its trillions of synaptic connections and its intricate neural network, is one of creation's most complex wonders. Neuroscience has revealed how certain brain regions, such as the temporal lobe and prefrontal cortex, are involved in religious and mystical experiences. The release of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin may be linked to feelings of ecstasy, peace, and divine connection. This fine-tuning of brain biology, which allows not only for life and cognition but also for the search for meaning and transcendence, is one of the most potent arguments for an intelligent designer. A creator who, with infinite purpose and wisdom, established the precise rules and conditions for consciousness and spirituality to flourish within a biological framework. It's fundamental to understand that science, in unraveling the complex mechanisms of biology and neuroscience that explain aspects of brain function and, by extension, the biological basis of some spiritual experiences, in no way diminishes divine control over miracles or the very origin of spirituality. On the contrary, it actually highlights and amplifies the complexity, intelligence, and power of the being who created and continuously sustains them. If God is the supreme author of natural laws, including the biological laws governing the brain, he also holds the prerogative and inherent capacity to operate them in ways that transcend our current understanding. A miracle, from this perspective, would not be a mere irrational break of natural law, but perhaps an application of a higher law still unknown to us, or a precise and intentional manipulation of brain biology in a way that we, with our limited perspective and current instruments, perceive as extraordinary, inexplicable by ordinary means, and therefore, miraculous. When the Bible describes the healing of a blind or paralyzed person, science might seek explanations in terms of neuroplasticity or the activation of suppressed neural pathways. However, the instantaneousness and completeness of these healings, often in cases considered irreversible, point to an intervention that transcends the natural capacity for self-healing of the body and brain. Science reveals to us the instruction manual of the organism and its brain functions, describing each gear and each biological principle, but the creator of this manual has the power and sovereignty to intervene, demonstrating that his authority and control are above his own established laws. Thus, biology and the other natural laws are not just impersonal physical phenomena. They are silent and perennial witnesses to God's infinite power, wisdom, and intelligence, inviting us to an admiration that transcends mere scientific explanation and leads us to worship for the complexity of the brain He granted us. Let's delve into one of the most detailed miracles in the New Testament, one that directly challenges our understanding of human biology and the healing capacity of the brain. The narrative of the healing of the paralytic at the pool of Bethesda, as vividly described in John 5 verses 1-9. This man had been paralyzed for 38 years, a condition that, for medicine of that time and even modern medicine, suggests chronic and likely irreversible neurological or muscular damage. The instantaneous healing of such a prolonged and severe condition is a direct challenge to the laws of physiology and rehabilitation as we know them. For an attempt at a scientific explanation of this miracle, we would be forced to venture into the realm of the most audacious and profound speculation, considering scenarios that currently belong to the domain of science fiction. We might speculate about a massive and instantaneous activation of neuroplasticity in the paralytic's brain, reorganizing and reconnecting damaged neural pathways in milliseconds. Perhaps the man's faith, or Jesus' powerful presence, triggered an extraordinary release of neurotransmitters and hormones that initiated an unprecedented process of cellular and tissue regeneration, restoring nerves, muscles, and motor coordination. Neuroscience studies the brain's potential for reorganization, but a complete and instantaneous recovery after almost 4 decades of paralysis is something that transcends any known therapeutic model. However, and this is the crucial and unshakable point of faith, regardless of any attempt at scientific explanation, no matter how ingenious, futuristic, or theoretically elegant it might be, God remains the unquestionable author of the miracle. The healing of the paralytic was not an accidental event, an inexplicable spontaneous remission, or a fortuitous coincidence. It was an intentional and deliberate act of divine power, a clear and tangible demonstration of Jesus' absolute authority over the laws of biology and disease, and a profound manifestation of his compassion. The biblical narrative is explicit: Jesus does not perform therapy or rehabilitation, he simply commands, "Get up. Pick up your mat and walk," and the man is instantly healed. Even if, in a distant and highly improbable future, science were to one day discover biological or neurological mechanisms that allow for such a rapid and complete recovery from chronic conditions, this would in no way nullify the miraculous nature of the biblical event. On the contrary, it would merely reveal another of the many laws, principles, or dimensions of reality that God already perfectly masters and transcends. Science, in its essence and glory, teaches us about the how the body and brain function and about the laws that govern them, but the who initiated this process, the why it happened, especially in such an extraordinary miracle, and what the divine purpose behind it is, remain firmly within the domain of faith and theology. The miracle of the paralytic at Bethesda serves as a powerful and eternal reminder that God's power transcends our limitations and that His intervention can operate in ways that go far beyond our current understanding of human biology and its laws. The miracles of the New Testament present some of the greatest and most profound challenges to scientific understanding, as they frequently appear to suspend or directly manipulate the natural laws we know and rely upon, especially those of biology and neuroscience. The healing of incurable diseases, the restoration of organs, the raising of the dead, and even the transformation of water into wine defy the limits of physiology, chemistry, and the self-healing capacity of the human brain. How can we reconcile these extraordinary events with our understanding of biological functions? Let's consider the healings of congenital blindness, John 9, or the restoration of atrophied limbs. Modern biology, with all its advancements in surgeries, prosthetics, and genetic therapies, still cannot replicate the instantaneousness and totality of these healings. A possible, scientific explanation, which would be highly speculative, could involve an unprecedented activation of neuroplasticity mechanisms and cellular regeneration. We could theorize that the brain, under divine intervention, somehow orchestrated a cellular and molecular reconfiguration with a speed and precision that are beyond our comprehension. Neuroscience knows that the brain has remarkable plasticity, but the reversal of decades of damage or malformation in an instant is still unknown territory for science. The raising of the dead, such as Lazarus, represents the ultimate biological challenge. Death is, for science, an irreversible process of cessation of biological functions, with cellular decomposition beginning rapidly. In current medicine, there is no known biological mechanism or theory that can reverse brain death and tissue necrosis after a prolonged period, such as 4 days. Any attempt at scientific explanation here would be pure conjecture, perhaps invoking concepts of quantum biophysics or divine control over the most fundamental molecular processes of life, going beyond our understanding of DNA, proteins, and cellular energy. The crucial point, however, is that even if science can theorize about the manipulation of biology or its laws in hypothetical scenarios, God's power is unequivocally behind all miraculous events. Jesus' miracles were not tricks of illusion, random spontaneous remissions, or misinterpreted natural phenomena. They were powerful and intentional demonstrations of his divinity, aimed at building the faith of his followers, revealing the kingdom of God, and manifesting his compassion and love for humanity. Science can strive to describe the observable effects of a miracle, the restoration of sight, the return to life, but it cannot, by its very nature and methodology, access the primary divine cause that initiated and sustained them. The true harmony between faith and science therefore lies in understanding that both perspectives, though distinct in their methods, languages, and objectives, can coexist and profoundly enrich our worldview. Science investigates how the body and the human brain operate, unraveling the biological laws and mechanisms that God established with his infinite wisdom. Faith, in turn, focuses on why it was created, who sustains it at every moment, and what the purpose and meaning of all this are. Science reveals to us the majesty and intrinsic complexity of God's biological and neurological laws, while faith shows us that the lawgiver of these laws is capable of acting in ways that transcend our limited comprehension, even when biology seems to be defied. Both are valid and complementary paths for the pursuit of truth and knowledge, each contributing to a more complete, profound, and reverent picture of reality and the Creator. At the end of our exploration into the biology of miracles, and the role of the human brain in manifesting spiritual phenomena, we arrive at a fundamental and humble conclusion: science, though undeniably useful and illuminating in its ability to unravel the mysteries of the natural world and expand our knowledge of the universe, will never be able to fully and exhaustively comprehend the divine mysteries. Science operates strictly within the parameters of the observable universe, of the laws that we can measure, test, replicate, and mathematically model. It offers us an incredibly detailed and precise map of creation, with its complex biological interactions, neurochemical patterns, and phenomena of consciousness. However, God, as the supreme creator and sustainer of all that exists, intrinsically transcends this map. He is not an entity that can be confined within equations, replicated in laboratory experiments, or explained by physical and biological theories. He is the original and continuous source of all life and consciousness, including the human brain's innate capacity to seek and experience the transcendent. The human brain, with its impressive plasticity and its capacity to generate complex experiences like faith and spirituality, is an eloquent testament to the divine order and intelligence that permeates every aspect of creation. Neuroscience can map the brain areas activated during prayer or meditation, identifying neural correlates of mystical experiences. However, when a biological miracle of instantaneous healing occurs, or when life is restored after death, science may attempt to formulate hypotheses, but these will always encounter the insurmountable limits of what we can observe, measure, and test. This is because God operates on a level that goes far beyond our physical and conceptual understanding of biology. The human perspective is intrinsically limited by the dimensions of time, space, and the very laws we seek to understand and that govern us. We are finite beings attempting to comprehend an infinite, eternal, and boundless being. We cannot fully understand the Creator using only the tools and laws that He Himself created for the functioning of the universe and of life. The idea that biology or neuroscience can be distorted or transcended in a miracle does not diminish the validity of these sciences. On the contrary, it elevates the power and authority of the one who created and sustains them at every moment. It's like a brilliant artist who, having established the rules and limits of a complex work of art, can add a final touch that defies the observer's expectations, but which is, in fact, an integral and intentional part of their creative and inexhaustible vision. Science shows us the intricate beauty and logical complexity of the canvas that is the universe and the human brain. Faith connects us directly with the supreme artist behind all this magnificence, revealing the purpose and love in every synapse and every conscious thought. Therefore, scientific inquiry is not only commendable but essential for the progress of human knowledge, as it reveals the intelligence and order present in God's grand creation, including the wonder of life and consciousness. Nevertheless, it will always lead us to a point where the questions become larger than the answers possible within the strictly scientific scope. Miracles serve as powerful, tangible, and unforgettable reminders that reality is far vaster, deeper, and more mysterious than our ability to measure or rationally explain. They point to a God who is eternal, omnipotent, and omniscient, a being who transcends biology itself, brain function, and all the laws that govern the cosmos, operating in dimensions and with powers that our finite minds can barely begin to conceive. Science teaches us about the what and the how of the observable universe and of life. Faith leads us to the who and the why, humbly acknowledging that some mysteries will forever remain beyond our complete comprehension, thus revealing God's inscrutable greatness, sovereignty, and love. An eternal dance between what we can comprehend and what remains gloriously unattainable. Science guides us with its light, revealing the intricate mechanisms of life, but it will never fully unveil the deepest veils of the divine. God, in His majesty and transcendent power, remains beyond our full comprehension, with mysteries that reason seeks, but that, in the end, only faith can truly embrace.